in terms of hyaluronic acids, I mean, it's so ubiquitous. It's an extracellular matrix product. It's a sugar that's everywhere. It's in our joints, it's in our skin, it's in our organs. It's everywhere.
So I guess, that sort of leads nicely into, the topic of today, which is really about Hyalase, which is, in the last few years has become a very, very well-known product, especially in the world of cosmetic injectables, because, 15 years ago, we were injecting with absolute zero fear factor. We didn't have any understanding of, that things like vascular occlusions occurring and blindness and stroke and all these sorts of other horrible things that we've discovered can potentially happen. So maybe let's just start off by give us a basic description of what Hyalase is. And we all know the name. And I think, a lot of people listening to this have a reasonable idea, but I guess from at a detailed level, talking about chemically, structurally, what is it? How is it made? And then we can talk about, how you destroy it.
Can I tweak your question slightly?
Sure.
Hyaluronidase, not Hyalase, because Hyalase is a brand and there's several.
There you go.
And also, actually, why don't we talk about hyaluronic acid first? Because that's the thing that we're attacking with the hyaluronidase. And, I know that injectors have heard about rheology and structure 1,000 times, and every company will tell it slightly differently. But how do you understand it from from your perspective, Gillian?
So I'll try and just explain it basically, because I think that there's always an overcomplication of this, and I think that's not helpful to the on-the-ground injector. So in terms of hyaluronic acids, I mean, it's so ubiquitous. It's an extracellular matrix product. It's a sugar that's everywhere. It's in our joints, it's in our skin, it's in our organs, it's everywhere. And it's people will have heard of the maybe term like monosaccharide, disaccharide, polysaccharide, so sugars. You have one basic subunit. If you join those two together, you get a disaccharide. If you join all of them together, you get a polysaccharide. So effectively what hyaluronic acid is two types of monosaccharide sugars stuck together. And then the two stuck together equals a disaccharide, and then it just repeats. Then it forms a chain, which is called a polysaccharide, and it's sticky and it absorbs a lot of water, so it's called a mucopolysaccharide, and that basically, is what it is. So in the body, it's just long strands of this like chain of sort of polysaccharide sugar that's absorbing water, basically. And those disaccharide subunits, there's a particular bond that sticks them together, which is the beta-1,4 glycosidic bond. So that's effectively where the hyaluronidase enzyme targets. So it's bringing water in and catalyzing the breakdown of those bonds back into those disaccharide subunits. So that's the hyaluronic acid that we have in the body, and that's basically how it's structured. And then that's where the enzyme targets. But with dermal fillers, what they do is they just use bacteria to create a bunch of this uncross-linked hyaluronic acid, the big strands of it, and then they purify it all. So they have to take away the bacteria, the toxins that the bacteria produce, and any other sort of residue. So they filter that all out, and then they just put it in a big bucket with a cross-linking agent that is like, it's almost like if you've got two hands and you're grabbing two strands of the hyaluronic acid at certain points, and it's then sort of pulling the strands together more like tighter, and then you get some sort of bending and twisting and sort of natural entanglement of it, and then you can either chop it up randomly or put it through a sieve to make sort of little pockets of the same size. And then with the cross-linker, because you're tightly packing the strands together, the enzyme can't physically find its target because you're shielding them, you're pulling the strands together. So therefore you're making it resistant to breakdown, because you're making it more difficult for the enzyme to find those sort of active sites where you get these bonds linking the disaccharides together. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching the podcast clip. You can listen to the whole audio episode of the podcast on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And please also leave us a review on the podcast app.
If you like what we do, please smash the like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when we release new content.